This is the instructional video for 2.3, which was solving multiplication and division inequalities. So the main thing that we talked about today in class is that new rule that if you multiply or divide by a negative, so anytime you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to remember to reverse your inequality. And we said flip your inequality. Okay? So when you multiply or divide by a negative, so if the number that you're moving across the inequality symbol is negative, then you have to remember to flip your inequality symbol for your answer. Okay? So let's go ahead and look at A. So we have a number divided by 8 is greater than negative 5. Well, the opposite of dividing by 8 would be to multiply by 8. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 8. And that will give me that x is greater than negative 40. Now notice I did not flip my symbol here because the 8 was not negative. So if 8 had been negative when I multiplied across, then I would have flipped this. So it doesn't matter if this number is negative. Okay? So remember in class we had to modify our number line here because obviously negative 40 is not on it. So if you guys would go ahead and just think of your number line and place negative 40 on it. And now we can graph. So if x is greater than negative 40, that would be an open circle, and the numbers that are bigger than negative 40 are on the left. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and look at B. So we have negative 20 is greater than or equal to 3x. So the opposite of multiplying by 3 would be to divide by 3. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. And negative 20 over 3 is 6 2/3, negative 6 2/3, or negative 6.6 repeating if you prefer. So that would be greater than or equal to x. So on Monday and Tuesday, we worked on rewriting our inequalities where the variable was on the left. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm actually going to take this and I'm going to rewrite it as x is less than or equal to negative 6 2/3. Okay? All right, so now that I have that, I am going to graph my answer. So negative 6 2/3 would be a little more than half. So I'm going to put my closed circle, remember it's closed, and then it is less than or equal to, so those would be the values to the left of that. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and look at the next section. Okay, so here we have 2 is less than a number divided by negative 3. So notice now I am trying to isolate y over here. It's right there. And I am going to do that by doing the opposite of what they're doing. So the opposite of dividing by a negative 3 would be to multiply. So when I multiply this side by negative 3, so notice I'm multiplying by a negative. So I'm going to have to flip my inequality. Okay? So negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. That would be greater than y. Okay? So the rule I just reviewed on the last slide, that if you multiply or divide by a negative number, like we did here, we multiplied by negative 3, you have to remember to reverse your inequality. And I gave you guys this suggestion today that if you are multiplying by a negative, circle your inequality so that you remember to flip it. Okay? Now for this particular problem, we are having to rewrite again. So we have y, so y is actually less than negative 6. So that's our actual answer here. So to graph that, I would go to negative 6 on the number line, and that's going to be an open circle, and the numbers less than that are to the left. Okay? All right, I want to talk a little bit more about this flipping the negative thing. So my original inequality was 2 is less than y over negative 3, okay? The value that we calculated, we said that the number has to be less than negative 6. That means it has to be somewhere over here on the left side of negative 6. So let's choose a value and substitute it in and just make sure that it works. So I'm going to pick negative 9. Okay, so I'm going to put negative 9 right here where y is. So I would have 2 is less than negative 9 over negative 3. So if I was to do the math, the question is 2 less than 3? Which it is. 2 is less than 3. So I know that I solved this inequality correctly. Any value that is going to be less than negative 6, if I put it in here for y, it will make this inequality true. So remember, we checked solutions on Monday and Tuesday in class. So you can always check by picking a number that falls in your graph and substituting it in for the variable and seeing if it works. Okay? Why don't you guys pause and see if you can do B on your own, solve and graph. So for this problem, notice it was negative 7 times y is less than or equal to negative 35. The opposite of multiplying by negative 7 was to divide. When I realized I would be dividing by a negative, I circled my symbol to help me remember to flip my symbol. So negative 7 divided by negative 7 makes 1y. I reversed my inequality, and then negative 35 divided by negative 7 is 5. Then this one's all set up the way I like it with my variable on the left. So I put a closed circle on 5 because of the equal to part. Remember, 5 is part of my solution. And then I want all the numbers greater than that. So my array extends to the right on my number line. So make yourself another note in case you forget. If you multiply or divide by a negative number, okay, anytime you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to remember to reverse, which is the same thing as flip, your inequality symbol. Okay? Do not forget. That's probably one of the most missed things on this assessment. So anytime you multiply or divide by a negative, flip your inequality symbol. Okay, so then we followed up today by working some word problems. So I'm going to work one of those with you now. So it says that we earn $9.50 per hour at our summer job. We're going to write, so it's asking me to write an inequality, and then it's also asking me to solve that inequality that represents the numbers of hours you would need to work to buy a digital camera that costs $247. Okay, so there's a couple of things that are important to us here. We know we make $9.50 an hour. So to calculate how much you would earn, you would do $9.50 times the number of hours that you work. We also know that our digital camera that we're trying to purchase is $247. So I'm trying to compare these two things. Well, if you're trying to purchase something, you have to have that amount of money or more. So I need my wages to be greater than or equal to $247. Okay, so we've now written our inequality. So these are my wages. We want the amount that we earn to be more than the camera cost, or equal, okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and solve. So the opposite of multiplying by 9.5 would be to divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by 9.5. And when I do that, I find out that, let's see, 247 divided by 9.5 is 26. So let's go ahead and make sure that we're answering the question that's being asked. So the question was, how many hours would we need to work to buy it? So we need to work 26 or more hours, right, in order to earn $247 or more, okay? All right, if you guys have any questions about this, we worked several examples in class, but if you still need some help, you can come in for tutoring, and I will see you tomorrow.